The Green Bay Packers had just 3 players in the Pro Football Focus top 100 players, and yet they won 11 games. They were one of the best teams in the NFC. This is a credit to the coaches in Green Bay, but it's also a wake-up call for the front office.
You are Locked On Packers, your daily Green Bay Packers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Packers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm Peter Bukowski, and I cover the Packers for The Leap, a newsletter I would love for you to subscribe to. Follow me on Twitter, Peter_Bukowski. Follow the podcast on Twitter, Locked On Packers. Like us on Facebook. Subscribe to the podcast, iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, wherever you find podcasts. You will find Locked On Packers, the #1 Packers podcast on the internet, and the show for fans who know what happened, they want to know why, and how. Today's episode brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Pro Football Focus, not the end-all be-all when it comes to player evaluations. Had 3 players in their end-of-season top 100 list. And it may make you go, I don't care. Pro Football Focus does not know what they're talking about. And, whatever. I get it. I guess it's 101 players, by the way. But when you look at the other teams around the NFL, it fits in a lot of ways with the way that we view this Packers team. 1 through 53, this is a very deep roster. But when it comes to the number of high-end talent players, the Packers just can't compete. The Eagles had 11 guys in the top 101. The Lions had 9. 9. Packers had 3. The 49ers had 5. Packers had 3. And it's 2 brand new guys, Xavier McKinney and Josh Jacobs. An enormous credit to Brian Gutekunst for going out and getting those guys. And then Zach Tom, again, an enormous credit to Brian Gutekunst for drafting Zach Tom in the 4th round. He has turned into one of the best right tackles in the league. And the Packers have done it again with offensive linemen on day 3 in the 4th round. 4th and 5th round really have been big for the Packers. TJ Lang, Josh Sitton, David Bakhtiari, add Zach Tom to that list. Corey Linsley was a 5th round pick. I mean, the list is remarkable for the Packers and their offensive line on day 3. And going out and there's this whole narrative of the Packers, they're not going to go out and they're not going to take a big swing. They're not going to go after X player, Y player. The Packers just don't do that. This is not Ted Thompson's team. We have to stop this. I understand that for some of you, the Ted Thompson era was scarring and it led you to a place where you believe the Packers are always this one thing and will only ever be that one thing. But that's not the reality. Okay, preamble done. 3 players in the top 101. Now that's solely based on last year. But I think we can all agree last year, Kenny Clark did not play like one of the 100 best players in the NFL. I think we could all agree that last year, Rashawn Gary did not play like one of the 100 best players in the NFL. I think reasonable people can disagree about Jordan Love. There were some quarterbacks on that list that I went, There were some players on that list where I just went, Jordan Love, injured, performed is a different thing, but produced like a top 10 quarterback in all the efficiency metrics. Okay? So if you think that's a Matt LaFleur reflection, I understand. And this is where I say, this is where we open the show. Matt LaFleur, Jeff Hafley, this coaching staff, getting 11 wins out of a roster that lacks high-end, I will say high-end production. I don't think lacks high-end talent. Is remarkable. It is a credit to the job that they did with this team. Jeff Hafley in particular with, Your pass rush wildly underperforming. You're bringing in rookies. Edgerrin Cooper was spectacular as a rookie. Evan Williams, they bring in right away. Javon Bullard, up and down rookie season. Thrust into a starting role as a safety. Then they had to move him to nickel. Then they move him back to safety. Then back to nickel. I think he's going to be a lot better in 2025. But what the Packers have to assess right now is their roster. Coming into the season, I remember being on this show saying, well, the only way the Packers offense would regress is if the receivers all fail to take a step forward. And not only did they all fail to take a step forward, in almost every case, they took a step backward. I'd say Christian Watson stayed the same, but stayed healthier until the end of the season. Here's the problem. You built this roster that, again, is from 1 to 53, extremely solid. There are very few holes, if any holes. I mean, we're going into an offseason where I don't know if they're, based on the last game we saw the Packers play. So, like, if Jair Alexander is gone, where are the starting positions on defense? Because if TJ Slayton walks out the door, Devontae Wyatt or Carl Brooks walks right into that position. Or maybe you flip Kenny Clark to nose tackle and then Devontae Wyatt or Carl Brooks becomes your 3 technique. Either way, you've got it. And you've planned for it. It's not that just you can move out, like every team can next man up. But the Packers have planned for that. The rest of the defense is set. Carrington Valentine, Keyshawn Nixon, Javon Bullard in the secondary, Evan Williams, Xavier McKinney. You've got your linebackers. You're good. Offensively, you're like more than good. You're set. It's going to be the same guys. Now, you move Alton Jenkins to center potentially, Jordan Morgan, but however you finagle it, you've set up so that you have premium assets to backfill a potential loss with Josh Myers. Who are they going to draft where you go, that person no doubt starts? Okay. Now, there are certainly, you say, okay, pass rush, edge. There are places where they could draft someone, corner, and a player could play well enough to come in and beat out whoever the incumbent is. But this is not like last year at safety where like they needed bodies. Linebacker, they just needed bodies to fill the roster. That's not where the Packers find themselves at any position on this team. The pass rush underwhelmed, okay, but they've got a first-round pick. So what they have to figure out here is the players on the team. Can they change that number that we started with, the Pro Football Focus number? And again, forget the Pro Football Focus part of it. Elite talent. How many elite talents does this team have? Who are the players on the Packers currently who could be that next year? Now, I think the obvious example, Edgerrin Cooper. I think Rashawn Gary could be back on the list if he was off it. Jordan Love, healthy Jordan Love belongs on that list. So now all of a sudden, 5, 6 players. But can they get to 9? Can they get to 11 like the Eagles have and maintain the fact that they have this weak-link system on both sides of the ball where they don't have any holes? Well, they already have those players. So can you add some superstar talent or superstar players? Even not even forget superstars, just top 100. So well above average players, top 10 at their position kinds of guys. Alton Jenkins probably just like he's a top 10 guard. Am I surprised he didn't make the top 100? No, like that. But he's a really good player. Do they have the guys on the roster to close down that gap? Or do they have to go get them? That's the thing. Because last year, I think it was totally reasonable to go into last year the way that they did with this roster. They expected Jair Alexander to be healthier. They expected the receivers to be better. They expected this pass rush to be, we've seen them, all of them, be better. So now given what we saw last year, how do you project this team moving forward? Can Carl Brooks or Devontae Wyatt take that pass rush leap? Is Kenny Clark cooked, or did Kenny Clark have a bad year adjusting to a new system? Is Rashawn Gary overpaid, or was the second half a better indication of what he's going to be moving forward? Is Carrington Valentine a real guy on this team? Can Javon Bullard? I think Javon Bullard can be significantly better than he was last year. Given one position to play all offseason, you get to prepare to be that guy. I think Evan Williams could move into a top 100 player, top 10 at the position kind of producer for the Packers. Edgerrin Cooper, again, you look at tackles for loss per game, total TFLs, whatever, havoc rate, whatever. He was sterling at the end of last year. And really for most of the season, even when he was kind of like, I don't know what I'm doing, he would luck into a TFL, even to get the Eagles week 1. So they do have talent on the roster. The question is, how high does that talent go? How high can it take them? Like Lucas Van Ness, exceedingly physically gifted. But can you bank on it? These are not easy questions to answer for this Packers front office, but they need to be able to answer them to move this team forward. Now, when it comes to contenders in the NFC, the Rams were a contender last year. They're doing something with Matthew Stafford that the Packers didn't do with Aaron Rodgers. And just because it's in the news and it's a big story right now, I wanted to take us down memory lane a little bit and walk through what might have happened if the Packers did with Aaron Rodgers what the Rams are doing now with Matthew Stafford. That's next on Locked On Packers. When the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started, and there's no better place to get in on it than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game, so even if you miss the opening tip-off or win a bet on a fourth quarter comeback, you can stay in the action. And if you're looking for a bigger payout, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay. I love the way FanDuel's live betting feature lets me keep in every moment. Every game is exciting, whether I'm backing my team for a late game rally or picking a player to hit a clutch 3. I never feel like I'm missing my chance. Plus, the app is easy to use, and when you win, you get paid instantly. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first FanDuel bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. The LA Rams are letting the market set the number for Matthew Stafford. They're coming off a year in which they were surprise contenders. They gave the Eagles everything they could muster. If Jalen Carter doesn't sack Matthew Stafford, the Rams might win that game because Stafford had a guy wide open. That's where they were going with the ball. Jalen Carter just won one-on-one and snuffed the play out. And yet, they are playing games right now. And if I'm a Rams fan, I would frankly be pissed about what's going on in LA right now. Just pay him. Just pay. Why are you arguing over the difference between $45 million, let's say, $48 million, and $55 million? Now, look, we don't know that Stafford would take 55. Dak's getting 60. He might want 60. He might want 65. Who knows? He might want 70. I won a Super Bowl in this town, he might say. I'm a made man in this business, so you should pay me what I want. I'm not saying do that necessarily, but what are they doing? If I'm a Rams fan, I'm going, why are they handling it this way? Just give him the money. Let's go make a run at this. And then see what happens. Like this was the guy you brought in to do the thing. You brought Matthew Stafford here, then went all in. You traded a second and a third for Von Miller. Like you gave up. This was the F them picks Super Bowl that you won with Matthew Stafford. So why not say F the money and just go pay him? That would be where, like, if I were doing Locked On Rams, that would be the show that I would be doing. Because I know that there would be a lot of fans in Green Bay that felt that way. That was why Aaron Rodgers ultimately got paid, even though the Packers' 2021 season did not go the way at the end that they wanted. Aaron Rodgers was coming off back-to-back MVPs. And longtime listeners of the show, longtime followers of me might be surprised. Well, longtime listeners and longtime followers will know. But more recent followers and more recent listeners may be surprised to know that I thought the Packers made the smart call when they extended Aaron Rodgers after 2021. Let him retire as a Packer, reset, reload, and try and make another run in the late prime of Aaron Rodgers' life. Well, who knows about his life, his career. They didn't do that. But they could have done what the Rams are doing. Now, the Packers were ultimately willing to pay Aaron Rodgers at the top of the market. But what if the Packers had handled the Aaron Rodgers situation like this? And they said, Aaron, we want to pay you, but we don't think the market would bear out for you what you want from us. It's difficult because he would have been the back-to-back MVP. He's Aaron Rodgers. He would have been the four-time MVP. He would have gotten a top-of-market deal. But let's just play this out. You let him hit the open market. We have a feeling that the Broncos were gearing up because they thought there was a chance that the Packers were going to move on. That's why they bring in Nathaniel Hackett. What would they have been willing to give up? What would they have been willing to give up? Probably more than you ultimately got from the Jets. Aaron Rodgers wanted to be in Green Bay. That's why he signed the contract. The Packers wanted Aaron Rodgers. And I don't find it at all compelling. Because I put this out on X. I forgot to put it out on Blue Sky. I should do that. But I don't find it at all compelling, the arguments about Jordan Love's readiness. If Jordan Love was ready to play, remember the first game Jordan Love played where he lit up the Chicago Bears and was like unbelievable on late downs, third downs, fourth downs, played awesome in the first game out the gate on the road against your rival. I don't find it at all compelling to suggest that heading into 2022, his readiness level was that different. Remember what Devondre Campbell said about Jordan Love heading into 2022, that he's better than a lot of quarterbacks that they face. The team had seen him be that. Players on the team had seen him. Devondre Campbell had only been there in 2021. 1 year, and he gets to see that from the back. He doesn't have to say that about Jordan Love. Who does he know Jordan Love from Adam? He doesn't know. They're not boys. And Devondre Campbell, let's be honest, has made it very clear he will speak his mind. Scorched earth on the way out of Green Bay, now scorched earth on the way out of San Francisco. He's going to say what he means. What evidence do we have? Especially when Jordan Love was given one opportunity to play in 2022, he played great. What really would have been the difference between the full offseason as the starter? Like, I think there's value in that. But if the Packers move on from Aaron Rodgers in 2021, then you get, or after the 2021 season, so it would have been the year 2022, you get that same benefit of that full offseason, which he basically got anyway because Aaron Rodgers wasn't there. Jordan Love, even after the summer of discontent, which was the 2021 summer, then you have the 2021 season, and then Jordan Love again, OTAs, mini camps, he's the quarterback. Like, you think there's really a material difference between what happened between September and January? Like, that time was so valuable for Jordan Love? I mean, I guess you could say, okay, he gets that time plus the next year. But like, the difference between 2 years on the bench and 3 years on the bench, to me, when I'm the one, like, I have to be consistent on this. I'm the one that said, I don't think the difference is that big. I don't think he quote unquote, learned so much from Aaron Rodgers that it made him materially better. I think he was always this quarterback. You watch him at Utah State. They drafted him because he played like Aaron Rodgers. He doesn't play like Aaron Rodgers because they drafted him. Watch the tape. So if the Packers had done this and gone out and the Broncos were willing to pay him also, whatever, $50 million or whatever it is, $53 million, they would have known at that time that in all likelihood, that Broncos team would have given a ton of draft assets for Aaron Rodgers, coming off 2 MVPs. Now, look, an MVP has never been traded. I never believed the Packers were going to move on. But had they done this, I think in retrospect, it's obvious that the move was to trade him after 2021. You maximize the value. You don't waste the 2022 season spinning your wheels. You don't have to sign guys like Sammy Watkins. You just roll Christian Watson out there and Romeo Doubs and Jordan Love, and you figure it out. But in real time, it was a different set of calculations. But if you had gone through this process, maybe you would have seen, hey, we can get like 2 first-round picks and stuff from the Broncos. Is that maybe like what we should be doing? And I think at the time, there were people making this case. People that cover the Packers fans were saying, look, this has run its course. This team cannot get over the hump with Aaron Rodgers. And so it's time to move on. Devontae Adams wants out. It's time to just rip the Band-Aid off and move forward. I think there's logic to that. But if Aaron Rodgers says, I want to stay, like the same people who are like, oh, the team disrespected the franchise. How could you disrespect the franchise icon? The Packers made what, in retrospect, was a mistake to pay Aaron Rodgers. Because he was a franchise icon, because he was coming off multiple MVPs, and said, let's do this. And I don't know. I would love to get Brian Gutekunst on Truth Serum to know if in 2022 when they signed that deal, did you know then that was probably only a 1-year deal and that you were just going to have to take your medicine? I don't think so. I don't think so. I think when they signed that deal, they were ready to say, look, if he keeps playing like this, we will just eat the Jordan Love thing. Like, we think Jordan Love is good, but he's the MVP. Like, everyone that's like, oh, well, this is a reflection of Jordan Love. No! He was the back-to-back MVP. Give me a break. But in retrospect, that was the move, was to move on then. The Packers didn't know that. So in a lot of ways, what I'm saying is I applaud the Rams for saying, look, you're getting older, much older. I think he's 37. And we just don't know with this version of the team if it makes sense for us to give you a top of market deal. So go see what the market will bring you. And if someone wants to pay you $60 million, then they're probably willing to give us a bunch of good stuff for it. So we'll do it. You can have the money and move forward. I think in a lot of ways, this is a very forward-looking and innovative way to handle this. Again, if I were a fan, I'd be going nuts. But from the outside, that's why I think this makes an interesting conversation. You kind of go, I wish the Packers had done that with Aaron Rodgers. Because maybe they would have done this in 2021. And that would have been better probably for Jordan Love's development, for this team. You get more draft capital. Maybe they have, to the discussion we opened the show with, maybe they have more blue chip players because of the draft capital that they acquired in an Aaron Rodgers deal. As it is, they get some, they did all right? Edrin Cooper, Luke Musgrave, TBD on that, but that allowed them to then, once you have Luke Musgrave, then you trade down, you get Jaden Reed, you get Dontavian Wick, Carl Brooks. Like, they did well with that trade, but they could have done really well. Speaking of the draft, speaking of the trades, let's mock draft Monday next on Locked On Packers. All right, we talked to Keith Sanchez last week, and he mentioned Like every time we talked about a position group, he's like, you know what would be great is if the Packers traded down. Just trade back into that like 40 to 60 range and you're going to be good. So I thought, okay, let's do that. Let's figure out what that looks like. So I traded the Raiders 23 for 37 and 68. It's pretty close on the Rich Hill trade chart. Maybe there's a quarterback that they're moving up for. Maybe they're moving back up to get Jackson Dart or someone like that. And I did a different mock actually on Friday. And the reason I wanted to tweak it is because the more I'm hearing, and as you're listening to this, I am either en route to Indianapolis. I'm already in Indianapolis for the combine. The more I think Jaden Higgins is going to be a very early pick. I put his stats up side by side on social media with Marvin Harrison Jr. They're very similar. He's 6'4", 217. From what I understand, he's going to run very, very well this week, going to test very, very well this week. Will test like a Packers type this week. And in what is otherwise a pretty soft receiver draft, I think he's going to, and I know it's deep in the trenches and teams always want to build in the trenches. And so you want to guard against this, but I think he's going to go in the top 40. That is where I've currently planted my flag. And by the end of the week, I may be saying he's got to be a first round pick. If he goes out and runs 4.42, jumps 40 inches, and has a broad jump of 10.8 and runs a sub 7.3 cone, like he's a first round pick. The production is too good. The measurables are going to be too good. Guys like that do not fall to 55. So you get the extra early third round pick. You take Jaden Higgins at 37, and I've said I think this draft reminds me a lot of when the Packers traded out of the first round and drafted Jordy Nelson. And this receiver draft, if Travis Hunter is a quarterback or cornerback, then it makes even more sense to be trading out. Do you guys remember what pick Jordy Nelson was? 36. So that's why 37, that's right in that range, right? So then your second round pick, you get some pass rush help. Omar Norman Lott. Now, Pro Football Focus doesn't like it as much. If you listen to, say, like the Tom McShay podcast, they think Omar Norman Lott could be a first round pick. So at 6'3", 315, he is built almost exactly like Kenny Clark. I think he's 6'3", 217 or something like that, or 317. They're the same size. Pass rush potential. This is someone who I'm going to consistently be mocking here for the Packers. And then at 68, this is just a name to keep an eye on because I think in free agency, I think the Packers and Hassan Reddick make some sense. The Robert Saleh ties from this defense, they could go smaller. This is something we've talked about on the show, on The Leap, a newsletter I would love for you to subscribe to. By the way, really interesting piece on The Leap today, if I do say so myself, about this being a potential Jeff Hafley draft. If you go back and you look, 2020 Matt LaFleur draft, 2021 was an Aaron Rodgers draft, 2022 was a Joe Barry draft. I think 23 and 24 were Gutekunst drafts. 2013 or 2018, 2019 were Gutekunst drafts too. This could be a Jeff Hafley draft. And if he's willing to say some of these smaller guys I'm cool with, Josiah Stewart from Michigan is, I think, going to test like a kind of Packer in terms of the measurables. He's only 6'1", but he is rocked up, very athletic, fits the kind of model that they otherwise would like in athleticism. And so that's something to keep in mind. And then 87, I have to just keep doing this. Noah Williams is my guy there. I wanted to get a corner. There wasn't another corner, but I think Noah Williams can make himself a top 100 pick this week. I think he's going to run fast enough. I think he's probably going to jump well. And so he is someone who led the NCAA in interceptions, a transfer, and came right into Cal and played at a high level. And I think this is the world we live in now, the transfer portal and all that stuff. If you're going to come in as a transfer, you play well right away. I think that is an underratedly difficult thing to do. I think it is a credit to the players who are able to do it. I think quarterback especially. You come in, you transfer over at quarterback, new system, new players, new everything, and you ball out right away. That's a big deal. I think corner, a little less because it's really just you. But he came in and was awesome. Different level of play. And he's awesome. Like, I think that's a credit to him. He's got to test well enough, but I think this is someone who the Packers are going to have a lot of interest in. All right, here we go. Combine week. I think what we're going to do is the Adam Rank podcast will be tomorrow. I'm traveling Monday, getting to Indianapolis. The networking and the boots on the ground stuff will start in earnest. And then Wednesday, we'll have Brian Gutekunst. We'll have a show from that on Thursday. I'll be there on Thursday. We'll get you everything you need to know on Friday. So, Brian Gutekunst Tuesday. That'll be for Wednesday. I'm always thinking a day ahead. And then we'll be there Wednesday for your Thursday show, traveling back on Thursday, all that good stuff. So, that's, I think, how we're going to handle this week. Okay. So follow me on all the social medias, Peter_Bukowski. Podcast is everywhere you get podcasts. It's on YouTube. And we're going to be here all week bringing you fun content from Indianapolis, from the Combine, so you can stay locked on Packers.